The Centers for Disease Control this week, as well as the National Institute for Health, the World Health Organization, and of course, Dr. Fauci, reiterated this week that disinformation was indeed the biggest enemy of public health, and that anyone spreading rumors or conspiracy theories involving vaccines being a part of large-scale medical experimentation were dangerous individuals, tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists, and should readily be disregarded. Several hundred black men in Tuskegee, Alabama, tragically could not be reached for comment. Damn, funny how that works out. The opinions expressed by the Reverend are his own and no one else's on the planet. Not friends, not foes, not supporters, not detractors, not sponsors, and certainly not employers. They have been adjudicated thought crime in all jurisdictions. Consider yourself warned. They are coming from the heart. They are guided by the mind. They are guaranteed to choke you with a big, fat dose of the truth cock. Boys and girls, it's that time again. Welcome to the Sunday sermon. See who we got on board. All the usual suspects showing up early. Happy to see all of you. Everybody bring it in for the drum roll. We all know the drill. I like that. A little punch in the face, a little ice pick through the forehead, right out of the starting gate. We got Brother Jude. We got Joey on board. If you missed it, you're just going to have to catch the replay, buddy. We got Emmy. We got Joel. We got, of course, Roman. From opiumtales.com, happy to see, and of course my beloved Russian mistress Oksana. Sergey loves you too, my darling, because Russia. Happy to see you guys make it out for the sermon. Man, we got, again, I have overcommitted myself in terms of stuff that I got to squeeze into this hour, so we may be running a little quick, but I'm going to do what I can, man. This is my therapy. You guys already know. This is what I do to get it all out of my system, to keep from just going on a tear. This is catharsis for me. So I'm glad you guys are all agreeing to show up here and be a part of it. Still in that same motel room in that undisclosed location out here in the middle of nowhere doing crane work on a project in Central Oregon. Loving life, actually. In all honesty, I got to spend the day yesterday with a very good friend of mine from out of state who came in. We spent the whole day out at a geothermal hot spring over by the mountains. That was a great day, a great visit. Did my heart a lot of good. So I feel revitalized. I'm happy to see you guys here for the Sunday sermon once again. Man, all of my fans, all of my prophets of doom, my sinner sisters, my Reverend's Rangers, all showing up early, man. Glad y'all made it. I'm going to run down, I'm going to tone down, rather, the bumper music. We're going to jump into this thing. Bumper music, as always, you guys already know. If you've been here, if it's your first time you don't know, I'll refresh your memory from a band called Red Desert out of the smoldering ruins of Minneapolis, Minnesota. A once great city ruined by leftism. That seems like a trend these days here in the United States. But yeah, the name of the band is Red Desert. Name of the track is Older, No Wiser. It's not actually about the concept. I'll tell you what it's really about one day, or you can look it up for yourself. But I feel like it's appropriate bumper music because every week I get a little bit older, and every week you guys get to decide if I've gotten any wiser. Some weeks I do better than others. So that's where we're at. But you got to admit, it is a fucking jam, isn't it? I mean, just some straight ahead 2s and 4s, gut stomping rock and roll. Red Desert, Older, No Wiser. That's the bumper music. Every now and then we switch it up, man. I think I've done it maybe 4 times. I've switched up the music just when I wanted to bring a point home or maybe take it in a different direction. I know that I did when I did my tribute to Saul about a month ago. Switched it out, but that's okay. Back to the positive. Yeah, we're just gonna move right on forward for that. Wayne Sharp making it in. Glad you made it in live, buddy. Once again, we're back on Facebook. For how long, I have no idea. I'm sure they're going to come up with some reason to ban me again in very short order. But right now, we're back on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on YouTube. And I am putting the replays up on my Bitshoot channel. Go over there and check that out and subscribe for me. It helps out a lot. Bitshoot.com. It's become like the leading YouTube alternative for conservative commentators. So go over there and check it out. Big Rob C from Will to Live. All right. El Salvador stopping by. Oh, fuck yeah, man. Right on. I'm glad he made it. Fuck. Yes, Bitshoot. Yes, that's right, Dennis. Bitshoot. No, Bitshoot. Just kind of squeeze that back in together. But check it out at bitshoot.com. And if you guys can subscribe to my channel over there and help me build a following, it would definitely help out. That platform is still pretty young, so it's a lot easier for people to build followings over there than it is for YouTube, which is already saturated. And I'm also going to be dropping the replay probably on Rumble starting either this week or next. Again, just branching out, trying to get into more formats, trying to expand the audience, trying to make sure that I can't be banned from everything at one time, that you will always be able to find me somewhere. And with the push for censorship, some of which we're going to get into on today's program, you just never know, man. Every day, every week, it seems like it expands and moves forward. So that's the thing. Yeah, Joey Dennis beat you to it, fucker. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into this thing. First segment that I want to get into, first segment that we're going to do in proceeding is... Let me click over to banners here. We are going to go down everyone's favorite. That is correct. Ryan's Rabbit Hole. Everybody clap. We're going down Ryan's Rabbit Hole right out of the starting gate. Get that out. Because, and we talked about this, it actually dovetails nicely into one of the first of the bullet points that I wanted to discuss. But Ryan's Rabbit Hole this week is dealing. I narrowed it down a bit, Ryan, because I didn't want to get too broad here, but I wanted to stick specifically with Eugene Debs. Eugene Debs. You guys are familiar with Eugene Debs. Now, I know it's pretty unusual. For a lot of you think, why the fuck are we going down a rabbit hole? Why the fuck is Bart giving screen time to a self-proclaimed socialist and communist? Why is he doing that? I'm going somewhere with this. You guys fucking stay with me. Because regardless of what you may think of the man's actual politics, what he did for the labor movement is creating the comparison contrast that I want to move into, sliding into the bullet points. He was... born in Terre Haute, Indiana. Okay, we'll go down the actual bullet points. He was one of the early American union organizers and was tied in heavily with a union organization known as the International Workers of the World, the IWW, or the Wobblies. And we're going to get into Wobblies here in a second, but this is how things have progressed. Debs was falsely accused of conspiracy to murder. He was accused of all sorts of things. He got his start with the striking of the Pullman workers with the railroad. At the time, you have to think this was before trust busting or in the process of trust busting. And a lot of these companies were taking horrible advantage of their workers. You cannot disparage, in spite of how you may feel about socialism or communism, you cannot disparage the actual contributions that labor movements have brought to workers in this country from the early days. Because once upon a time, it was every bit as exploitive as they continue to tell you that it is right now. Debs was at the forefront of that. Why did they call them the Wobblies? Well, because there is a type of unsanctioned strike, basically, where they got together to do what is called wobbling a job. They would wobble a job. What does it mean to wobble a job exactly? Well, what it means, again, besides it being an unsanctioned strike, it means actions to slow down the progress of labor. In other words, sitting down on the job, everybody deciding to go have a word with the supervisor at the same time, strange, unusual mechanical malfunctions happening to heavy equipment at inconvenient times in the job. And this was all, their method of flexing on the hiring class, on the boss class, on the moneyed class, as it were. And Debs was at the forefront of that. Now, you should go in and look at all of that history, not just for Eugene Debs, but also just completely across the board for organized labor in the early days of the United States. There were some horrible things done. Corporations working directly with the government that resulted in some atrocities against the laboring class in this country. I would bring up at one point, the Haymarket riots. There's another one we can go down. The Haymarket Rebellion, depending on who's doing the definition, where they basically were demonstrating in favor for an 8-hour day, and the police lit in and started fucking shooting people. In the process of that, and depending on who's reporting on it, they will either focus on the police violence or they will focus on how labor responded to that, which was to throw a bomb into a crowd of people, and a number of people were killed. And then, of course, there was a show trial afterwards. Like, the struggle between labor and the moneyed corporate class in the United States has been a very real thing. It's been a very real part of our history. And to deny that is just absurd. And again, how I may feel about socialism or communism is irrelevant to the actual affairs of the day and the people that played a part in them. But historically, across the board, the left have praised the efforts of labor. The left, for instance, with regard to the Haymarket riot, they call it the Haymarket Rebellion, and they say that the bomb throwing was totally justified. In the West Virginia coal miner strikes, for instance, they sent in Pinkertons and actual National Guard troops and machine gunned coal miners in at least 2 instances. Coal miners were machine gunned by National Guard troops during the struggle of labor against the mine owners. If you talk to the left, they will say that any of the things that the workers did, and they did some horrible shit. Let's not, again, if we're going to paint a picture, we got to paint the full picture. A lot of these laborers were going into bosses' homes and doing unpleasant things to their families. Let's keep it relatively family friendly this early in the hour. But again, history's written by, history's going to be everybody's personal account. I say all this to get to the point that I'm making now. Throughout the course of the American left, as far as they were concerned, labor could do no wrong. Because it was always a struggle of the workers against the ruling class, and it was a noble struggle, and anything we do is justified, whether it's rape or slitting throats in their sleep or bomb throwing or any of these things. It's always justified because it's a class struggle. It's a class struggle of the workers against the rulers. And it's funny how that has been a standard throughout history up until the point where the left has seized power. And now, predictably, because the left would not know a principled argument if it bit them in their sanctimonious little asses, now that the left has assumed control over all the mantles and levers of power, any rebellion is not only not noble, in fact, it is an act of treason. In fact, it is an act of criminality. In fact, it is an act of insurrection, shall we say, something that is not to be tolerated. What, Bart, do you speak of? What, Bart, do you speak of? I speak of something we touched on last week, which is the start of the pushback. And again, what does it mean? It means we're fucking winning. That's what it means at its core. But let's get into some of the specifics. What we are seeing now across the board. And it is amazing. Again, when I say that the left have seized all of the mantles and levers of power, I mean that. They have seized the Oval. They have seized the House. They have a 50-50 split in the Senate, with Kamala Harris being the tie-breaking vote. So technically they have a majority in the Senate as well. They totally control academia. They totally control mass media, with the possible exceptions of Fox on a good day, and places like OAN and Newsmax, which haven't really gained the traction that they deserve yet. Conservatives own alternative media, which is how we've managed to stay in the fight. A little slug of the liquid enthusiasm here. What we're seeing now is pushback. And when I say that they control the media, I say that to say how they are dictating the perception of the pushback, how the pushback is being perceived by the grazer horde because of the mainstream media. Now, I know it's a difficult thing to get your head around, but perception is 9/10 of reality. And what did we say last week? That workers at Southwest had come out, and they had essentially, and Ryan, you were right to point it out like this, it was the appropriate phrasing. Workers at Southwest had essentially wobbled the job. They, in the grand tradition of Eugene Debs, which you would think that the left would praise, but no, we are through the looking glass at this point. And again, who the fuck am I to be commenting on this? I am the working class. I am the blue collar guy. I am at the end of the day, I'm just a crane operator with some fucking opinions. Okay. So I speak with the voice of the working class, even though I don't proclaim to speak for the working class. Let's drop back into it, shall we? Last week, it was just Southwest, essentially wobbling a job, massive sick outs, people calling in sick, people just suddenly cashing in their vacation days out of nowhere. And we were told by the mainstream media that this had absolutely nothing to do with the vaccine mandates. Now, obviously it did. There were pictures posted all over social media and all over alternative media where they had Gadsden flags hanging out of cockpits on Southwest planes. And there was actually an Alaska plane that had a Gadsden flag hanging out one of the back doors. I used to work the ramp. I know what it takes to access the points that they were hanging these flags out of. This wasn't being hung by regular people. This had to have been hung by airline employees, because regular people can't access that point on the plane. I know that because I worked the ramp. So these were legit complaints that were being posted by legit airline employers that were engaging in legit protests, essentially wobbling the job, calling in sick, and immediately the damage control went into effect, all the way up to Jen Psaki, circle back bitch. Went all the way up to Peppermint Patty, and she had to circle back to the official narrative, which is no, it's weather. Odd that weather would only affect one airline and not other airlines. But yeah, it's weather, and it's got nothing to do with the vaccine mandates. And it's all just a bunch of hubbub being pushed by guys that are drilling right-wing talking points, yada, yada. Okay. We all knew better. And over the course of the week, it's all come out. First, the CEO of Southwest, and I had people on threads going, see, the CEO came out and said it had nothing to do with vaccine mandates. And then he had to fucking backpedal on that. He had to immediately backpedal on that, because it came out that it was abject bullshit. That yes, in fact, it does have to do with the vaccine mandates. Not only did he have to backpedal, but he had to come out and try to make excuses for himself and for his airline. We don't want to do these vaccine mandates, but our hands are tied. The Biden administration has forced this. You're the fucking CEO. You're the fucking CEO. Find your spine, let your balls drop, and take care of your employees. And speaking of unions, since we're on labor strikes, where the fuck are the unions in this? Now, the police officers' unions and some of the first responders' unions have stepped up to look out for their employees. Again, you want to take the vax, but we're talking about federal compulsion for a medical procedure. I would oppose that even if it had 100% efficacy. I would oppose that
if this vaccine had a 10-year track record without a single fatality, I would still oppose compulsion. That's the principle that we're all fighting here. This, again, good Lord. Okay, I went down tangent street. Let me get back to it. Since Southwest Airlines, they came out and protested, they pushed back. The airline was forced to respond. And since then, American Airlines has also joined in the fray, as have employees for Alaska. And Delta, looking to avoid, that's who I used to work for on the ramp, full disclosure. Delta got out ahead of the curve and said, in spite of, and the CEO of Delta just a couple of months back was really pushing the whole vaccine thing. Once he realized how that was going to affect his bottom line in an already treacherous market, we saw how quick he scampered back to the doghouse now, didn't we? Oh no, I'm not going to force my employees to get a jab at all. There will be no vaccine mandates at Delta, because he read the writing on the wall. He read the writing on the wall even as they were trying to tell us through the mainstream media and through Peppermint Patty Jen Psaki circle back bitch that there was no writing on the wall. They addressed it. They're pushing back. We're winning. Wobbling the job, as Ryan said earlier on Facebook, and I thought it was fucking brilliant. It's no longer going to be called wobbling the job. It's going to be called pulling the Southwest. And I think that's entirely accurate. JetBlue and Alaska have issued vaccine mandates for their employees. Delta remains the only U.S. airline chain that has not required vaccinations. So good for Delta. Give them your money. If you're planning on flying, fly fucking Delta. Support the people. Vote with your dollar. It's one of the few powers that we have left. But again, the vaccine pushback, you want to talk about wobbling a job. And this is where it gets into the more important part. When I constantly maintain that we don't need to be taking the black pills, when I constantly maintain that we are winning, what is the one thing that the left, even with its absolute control of the narrative, even with its absolute control of the discussion, being able to shut down and deplatform people that differ from the narrative, what is the one thing that they absolutely need to have in place if they are going to carry through with any of these agendas? Whether it's vaccine mandates, or whether it's bad bills, or whether it's gun control, or whether it's this infrastructure debacle that we'll be getting into in just a couple of minutes here. What do they need? The war on information control is failing. You don't need a war for people control as long as you control the information, as long as you control the discussion, but clearly that's failing. And they're getting pushback. So eventually you wind up with an Australian situation where you actually have to lead with force. What do you need to lead with force? Well, you need your attack dogs. You need your enforcers. And in this country, what does that consist of? That consists of law enforcement, both from the state, the local, the county, and the federal level. Okay, you requires the assistance of all of the above. And you need your troops. You need your soldiers. You need the military. So when we're talking about pushback, they tried to say that all the first responders and all the military were getting on board. And what we're finding out is that that is not true. This, according to MSN News, Chicago police stalemate over vaccine mandates. What you need to know, updated. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole article with you. You can look up the article yourself. But at the end of the day, what it amounts to is this. The police officers union and the rank and file boots on the ground officers themselves, in spite of the perception that these guys are nothing but attack dogs for the establishment, they are pushing back against Lori Lightfoot and the vaccine mandates, and they're saying, no, we're not going to fucking comply. And she's standing her ground, that weird little trollish every time I look at Lori Lightfoot, if you guys are HP Lovecraft fans, you will understand the term. If not, it'll give you another thing to look up. But the Innsmouth look. If you guys are Lovecraft fans and you've read Shadow over Innsmouth, every time I look at Lori Lightfoot, I see the Innsmouth look. That fish-like sort of cult of Dagon. You guys know. If you're Lovecraft fans, you get it. But I can't look at Lori Lightfoot without thinking Shadow over Innsmouth. Anyway, to her credit, she's standing her fucking ground, and she's saying she's going to cut these people loose. Chicago is already a bloodbath on its best day. What do you think is going to happen when you lose 50% of your law enforcement officers? And what does it say that they're not willing to carry out this mandate? Now, one way of looking at it for you people who are intent on swallowing a black pill, you could say, well, yeah, it applies to them, so they're rejecting it, but they'll enforce it on us. Well, who's going to enforce it on us if they're walking off the fucking job? Again, you could be right. I could be wrong. Maybe this reluctant optimism of mine is my contribution to the Pollyanna demographic. I don't know. I'm just making observations. At the end of the day, like I said, I'm just a crane operator with some fucking opinions. But in Chicago, they're saying no. In other blue cities all over the country, they're saying no. Los Angeles Sheriff's Department flat out said that he would not enforce vaccine or mask mandates. This is in Los Angeles. This is in the heart of SoCal. This is in Blueville. This is in enemy-controlled territory, for lack of a better fucking word. If anybody was going to follow and enforce that mandate, it would be SoCal. But SoCal police departments and sheriff's departments are refusing to enforce this. And as of this week, according to my sources, we have literally hundreds of thousands of U.S. troops that are still refusing to get the vaccine. This in spite of being told that they would be booted from the military with a less than honorable discharge, that they would lose some of their veterans benefits, and for the lifers and for the officers, they would lose a good chunk of their pension. Do you think these people are, as we are being told by the media, do you think that these people are right-wing zealots, ignorant hillbillies? Pick your derogatory. It doesn't matter. These people are taking a principled stand, as you would expect from the sheepdogs. I don't know if Brother James Pearson or any of my other LEOs dropped in yet. I didn't catch anybody on the thing. But he can tell you, these guys are sheepdogs. They're looking out. Oh my God, we got Casey Tellison on board. Sorry, I went over to catch that. Now's as good as time as any, because I'm segueing between topics here. But again, let me close out by saying the sheepdogs, the enforcers, the military, they're pushing back. If they're not there to enforce the mandate, they're not going to be there to enforce any of the other edicts and dictates that are coming down from on high. I told you a long time ago, and I was less optimistic about law enforcement than I was about the military. But ultimately here, they are breaking ranks. The left are calling us insurgents, and I said a long time ago that the main thing that the main problem that they would have with that is that their attack dogs would jump ship and join the insurgency. And now, insurgency in air quotes, of course. And now we're seeing that. They're breaking and they're falling on our side. You're always going to have loyalists, okay? You're always going to have loyalists. The good news is that dictators, loyalists wind up being the weakest of the weak, because if you were a consequential person with a spine and balls, you would be able to stand up for yourself. The people that stick with the regime, as it is always with dictatorships, the only thing they have to offer is their obedience. They are ordinary, inconsequential people in their day-to-day lives. The only thing that they do well is, yes, Miss Daisy, I'll be shuffling for you. They obey well. They do that really, really well. And those are your loyalists. Those are the ones that will stick with the regime. The hardcore ones, they're breaking ranks and they're joining with us. Guys like my brother Casey Tellison, for instance, who has joined us for the broadcast, and I'm glad you made it, brother. While I'm here, while I'm in between segments, let me go ahead and give the sponsor shout outs. We're halfway through the hour, so let me do that. First of all, to Casey and Dusty Tellison, my Viking brothers from Nordic Smoke Barbecue, the only legit barbecue in the Inland Northwest. They are back out every Thursday, setting up off of Sprague every Thursday from like 10 until it's gone over at American Gun and Pawn. So if you live in the Spoke, or even if you don't, if you're within a short drive of the Spoke, get your ass out there, visit the smoker truck, the big Viking Longship, go see them. The only legit barbecue in the Inland Northwest. And of course, a shout out to my dear friend Roman and the bevy of beautiful women over at opiumtales.com, Roxy and Allie and all those gorgeous babes. They are the erotic pinups and portraits people. He has been pushed away, shall we say. He has been pushed away from the Twitter platform, the irony of which is just stinging. But he's still alive and kicking over at opiumtales.com with pictures of beautiful women and testosterone-driven commentary, and we know that I'm all about that. And Roman is also one of my oldest and dearest friends. So go over and give it a look at opiumtales.com. G-Dub, you made it. I hope you went and looked at the comment that I left you on Twitter, and I hope you understand where I'm coming from. Yeah, I get it. It's rough. It's very, very rough looking at these people who have, we have stayed on the job. Guys like me and you haven't missed a day of fucking work through this entire fucking thing. Some people, some of those among us were forced to get the jab to stay working. Why? To feed our families, and so we could keep the supply chain going to feed their fucking families. And now everybody wants to strike again. The sentiment that I'm expressing, and I hope you understood that, it's coming from the heart, and I appreciate everything that you've done, not just for me, but for the program, is that, hey, better late than never, And one thing I will say for G-Dub and the truckers out there, fucking over-the-road truckers, look at Europe, okay? Look at Australia. Look at everywhere where the pushback has just become overwhelming against these vaccine mandates. And who is at the forefront of the movement? It's the over-the-road truckers. Why? Because they have a ridiculous amount of power. Power that the grazer horde cannot fully appreciate. Power that, the Stasi Karens of the world cannot understand. They can shut it down. A trucker strike can shut this fucking place down. If you ever doubted that, look at what unintentional, I say unintentional because that's the official story. We can get into the conspiratorial end of it later. But look at what unintentional supply chain shortages have done to us. They've driven up prices. They have lengthened delivery times. They have created a lot of chaos. Now, I want you to imagine what would happen if if half, let's say, half of the over-the-road truckers in this country just woke up one morning and went, you know what? Go fuck yourself. We're not delivering shit. What do you think would fucking happen? Remember the last time we had a trucker strike in this country? I'll wait for you to click and Google it. Wait till the program is done. In fact, we may devote a whole fucking Sunday to that one of these days. But remember what happened the last time we had a national trucker strike? And the ones that decided to break, decided they were going to deliver their cargo anyway, they were getting shot at from freeway overpasses. I'm not making this up. I'm an old motherfucker. I remember stuff. And because of my age, a lot of times I forget stuff as well. But yeah, the truckers can shut it down. So anyway, G-Dub, what I'm saying is this. I understand your frustration. Believe me, I do. From the heart, I do. As far as it goes, though, the only people that see the strikers as the enemy, the only people that see the workers as the enemy, which is the whole point of this. I mean, if you go back and watch the replay, the whole point of this, and that's the oddest goddamn part of this thing. The people that see the workers and the strikers as the enemy, turns out it's the same fucking left that have always found that they could do no wrong. Again, it's not a principled argument with these people. Doesn't matter. Challenging power. Hey, A-OK, thumbs up. Challenging their power, on the other hand, treasonous. Must be shut down. Must be crushed. Which brings me to the... Okay, I'm going to jump 2 tabs and I'm going to go to that point. We are the enemy. We are treasonous. We are, what's the word? What's the I word? Come on. We've all heard it. We've been beaten over the head with it by the mainstream media for every fucking day since the first month of the year. There's your hint. Insurrectionist. That's what we are. Not because we're opposing power, because we are opposing their power. Suddenly we become insurrectionists. And we've been beaten over the head with that. Speaking of beaten over the head, they tried to convince us that there were fatalities among law enforcement, that one law enforcement officer was beaten about the head with a fire extinguisher. Turns out that was total bullshit, as was the entire fucking narrative that we've been sold. Has it stopped Pelosi from moving forward with the congressional subcommittee? Of course it hasn't. Because again, it's about perception. Thousands, tens of thousands stormed the Capitol building. It was the weirdest insurrection ever. Nobody was fucking armed. Odd. Conservative estimates had 250,000 people on the ground. I want you to ponder for a second what 250,000 people with fucking pitchforks could have done if it was an actual insurrection. But thankfully, at long last, the narrative is falling apart. According to Microsoft News, the FBI confirms that there was no insurrection on January the 6th. And the more video that comes out, the more we're finding out that the narrative is falling apart. The FBI, and this is from Reuters, not Fox News, not OAN, not Newsmax. This is from fucking Reuters. The FBI has found scant evidence that the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol was the result of an organized plot to overturn the presidential election result. According to 4 current and former law enforcement officials, 90 to 95% of these are one-off cases, said a former senior law enforcement officer with knowledge of the investigation. Then you have 5% maybe of these militia groups that were more closely organized, but there was no grand scheme with Roger Stone and Alex Jones and all of these people to storm the Capitol and take hostages. Wow. That's from those crazy enablers and justifiers at the FBI. Wait a minute. You smell that? That's your narrative falling apart, Sparky. Yeah. The media will continue to push it. They will continue to repeat the talking points, but it's all falling apart. Just like the vaccine mandates, it's all fucking falling apart. You cannot fucking drive this anymore. And I should point out that not one, up until now, as of this, as I'm speaking this right now, as of right fucking now, 17 October 2021, not one single prosecution has been brought under the Insurrection Act for the events of January the 6th. Not one. Yet, what is the talking point? Insurrection, 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 insurrection. Sorry, the record was broken. Record. It's, you young guys, you Google that. We used to play music and when it would get broken, forget it. Anyway, so yeah, no sedition, no insurrection. The narrative's falling apart, but the media keep driving it. This is the point. We don't give in to what the media is pushing. Here's another thing that they're pushing right now, the infrastructure bill, right? The first thing that I feel obligated to address with regard to the infrastructure bill is Bernie, because Bernie's comments, who's hanging it up? Who's hanging it up in the Senate? Two Democrats, right? Isn't that the popular notion? Two Democrats are hanging it up. Kyrsten Sinema and Manchin from West Virginia. Two. Bernie's comments were, we cannot allow two senators to prevent what 48 senators and X amount of House, and the President of the United States wants. We can't allow two senators to prevent that. Well, here's the deal, Bernie. I know this is going to be rough for you, being the doddering old socialist that you are, but it's not two. It's 52. See, the word that you're looking for is majority. I know it's a tough concept to get your head around. I know you'd rather be in the basement playing with your electric trains and whatnot at one of your three houses, because the millionaires and the billionaires, which is now suddenly just the billionaires, because now you're part of the millionaires. That's pretty good, Bernie, I think. What do you think? I don't know. Thumbs up? Anyway. Yeah, it's a majority, 52 in the Senate. I know you can't persuade your two, but what are you doing? Kyrsten Sinema is actually overseas trying to raise money for Democratic candidates right now. All right. Which, first of all, that's its own set of problems. But your narrative, your picture that you're painting of her, right? All because she won't agree with you, because no one is allowed. You remember when, I remember once upon a time with the Democrats where mavericks from Arizona were pretty highly thought of. Why? Because they weren't challenging your power. Remember what we said? Challenging power, good. Challenging their power, big fucking problem. But here's some of the things that they're trying to sell us in that infrastructure bill. And again, I'm just going to touch on a couple of checklists, and then I want to get on to this thing in Loudoun County, because that's pretty fucking heinous. The infrastructure bill. Who could be against building bridges and roads? Who could be against that? $3.5 trillion and $650 billion of that has been earmarked to build bridges and roads. Who could be against building bridges and roads? What are they constantly hitting the libertarians with when we say taxation is theft? What are they constantly? Who will build the roads? Who will build the roads? Who is going to build the roads? Well, these same motherfuckers that managed to take $650 billion worth of roads and bridges spending and turn it into a $3.5 billion boondoggle. What is in there? $10 billion, and I'm just going to run down the list real quick. And again, this is coming from Reuters. Again, I fall back on Reuters a lot. Eventually, Reuters is going to be one of the few honest journalist news wires that's going to be out there, and they're going to start calling Reuters right-wing extremists, because that's what they do. But $10 billion to create a civilian climate corps. That's right, the Green Police. $20 billion to advance racial equity and environmental justice. Could there be anything more fucking vague? But $20 billion of your tax dollars has been set aside specifically in this bill. $175 billion in subsidies for electric vehicles. Oddly, because of a quirk in the way this thing is worded, and because Biden doesn't like individual capitalist fucking developers, Elon Musk's Tesla Corporation has been excluded from this. Ooh. But I thought we were going green. I thought we really were trying to move forward. Yeah, but only if you agree with me politically, and only if you'll play the game. $213 billion to build and retrofit houses and buildings. I was an environmental building inspector there for a minute. I know what they're talking about doing. It's absurd. It's an absurd expenditure. And it's an expenditure that could much more easily processed at the state or local level, even if you did insist on it. $100 billion. I wish I were making this up. I mean, I read this stuff and I'm like, no, this can't be fucking true. But $128.5 billion for making school lunches greener. What was that? What was that I just did? It's what I call the Reverend Bart gravity check. Okay. The Reverend Bart gravity check works like this. When I see something that is so fucking patently unbelievable that it just could not have literally happened, I do a couple of things. I either hit the Jedi pose, right? Or I flap my arms, or I hit the Superman thing, right? If I leave the ground, I know I'm dreaming. But if I hit any one of those three and I don't leave the ground, holy shit, that just really happened. It's the Reverend Bart gravity check. Try it at home, especially when you're watching the news these days. Billions to eliminate racial and gender equities in STEM programs, $100 billion to expand fucking government child care programs, on and on and on. This stuff, tree equity. I'm not again. Yep, tree equity. That really fucking happened. This is all in the infrastructure bill. So again, it's absurd. But here's where the left, again, and I'm going to take this as a positive sign. Here's where the left has totally given in to the hubris of the whole fucking thing. They're telling the media that the media isn't doing a good enough job of selling it. This is wrong on two fronts. Number one, they're doing their best to push those part of it. They just haven't spun it and sanitized it yet. But much to the chagrin of Nancy Pelosi, and in spite of the way that the mainstream media have acted, they're not Pravda. Not yet. They're not Pravda. It's not their job. It's not their duty. And it's not their purpose to carry through a bill that the American people certainly don't want. And in spite of the cleansing and the sanitizing and the spin doctoring and all the other control that's been put forward, they still can't. In every poll after poll, they barely got 52% approval on this. This is not a mandate by any stretch of the imagination. This is not FDR and the New Deal. This is not Lyndon Johnson and the Great Society, where Democrats were voted in by huge majorities and they had huge percentages of public support. It's not any of those things. But again, it's what they can sell you. You want to hear what they're selling us in Loudoun County, Virginia? And I had to get this, and I want to make sure I've got at least 10 or 12 minutes to deal with it because it's complicated. Back in June, Loudoun County, Virginia, of course, is a blue school district with an entirely Democratic-controlled school board in a blue state. Virginia, how far you have fallen. And again, every governor in Virginia, they never met a gun control law they didn't like. They never met a leftist lunatic social program that they didn't fucking like. Back in June, oddly enough, this same school board, and this just came up when I was doing my research for how I was going to present this thing. And it's funny how life comes at you fast. Back in June, Xi Van Fleet, I'll wait for you to look that up. Xi spelled X-I, same as President Xi of China. Xi Van Fleet. This mother went before this school board, and what is her distinction? Well, her distinction is that she survived the Chinese Cultural Revolution. She survived Mao and his Great Leap Forward. I want to interject this real quick. It's important to make the distinction. Stop, when you're slagging Antifa, stop saying that Antifa are the real fascists. They're not. They're communists. It's time that we start calling that what it is and drawing that distinction. We always know in this country when the right has gone too far. German, funny mustache, but the left, we have no cultural touch point because it's not taught to us the way that it was in my day that communism is a bad thing and the evils thereof. This woman, Xi Van Fleet, went before this school board She survived Chairman Mao's Great Leap Forward. Survived it. She went before the school board and she said, and I quote, again, goes before, after enduring Mao Zedong's Cultural Revolution, she slammed this Virginia school board over its support of controversial critical race theory during a public meeting on Tuesday, January the 8th. This is her quote. "I've been very alarmed by what's going on in our schools," G. Van Fleet told members of the Loudoun County School Board. "You are now training our children to be social justice warriors and to loathe our country and our history." She likened CRT to China's Cultural Revolution, which saw Mao Zedong lead a genocide of anywhere between, and again, conservative estimates, 500,000 and 20 million deaths from 1966 to 1976. Anywhere from 500,000 to 20 million killed in the Great Leap Forward. And this woman survived that. Can you imagine being Adolf Hitler in hell? Can you imagine that? You're off standing in one corner because even Hitler has to be pushed off to the side, even in hell. They stand him off in his own corner, and he's in there with sharp people buster and his fun little mustache, and he's looking across the way at Mao Zedong, Pol Pot, Joseph Stalin. I know this is an odd thing to say, but dude, poor Hitler, man. Because he's got to be off in his corner just going, really, these motherfuckers, I'm the bad guy. These motherfuckers, are you kidding me? Anyway. And then probably some stuff in German with a lot of wild hand gestures. Anyway, because even in hell, Hitler's the same guy. Whatever. Point is this. Sorry, I got to drop some comic relief in when I can because we're dealing with heavy stuff. So don't think I'm trying to diminish anything or minimize it. But she recalled that when she was just 6 years old at the start of the Cultural Revolution, state-sponsored propaganda pitting students and teachers against one another. There would be several big propaganda posters in the hallways and the cafeteria. One of the teachers was considered bourgeoisie because she liked to wear pretty clothes. So the students attacked her and spit on her. She was covered with spit, and pretty soon it became violence. In other words, when the left goes too far politically, it can become violent. Wow. You wouldn't believe that listening to that Maddow guy on MSNBC or any of the ways that it was fucking pressed. But basically, back in June, G. Van Fleet said that leftism has gone too far and this is going to end badly. Well, fast forward to not very long ago in that same Loudoun County school district. I hope you're sitting down. Brace yourself, because this is ugly. But a teenage girl was raped. I'm going to stick with factual statements that the platforms will have no grounds to deny me over, and that's still bad enough. And it's this. A teenage girl was raped by a trans female. A boy in a skirt, okay? I'm not going to play nice. It was a boy in a skirt. It was a thing that we have always warned about from day one with the bathroom bills, and we were called tinfoil hat and alarmists and transphobes and homophobes and every other goddamn thing. Anybody who knows me knows my position on the LGBT community and advocacy for same and for the trans community. It needs neither justification nor defense, if you know me. And if you don't, I don't care. Your opinion carries no weight. But a teenage girl was raped in the bathroom by a boy in a skirt who identified as trans. Raped repeatedly and beaten. And the school board, again, because the left can never go too far, and because they are absolutely morally pure and their hearts are in the right place and no bad can ever come of this, and if you suggest that something bad could come of this, then, well, you're just a bad person yourself and you're evil and yada, yada, yada. Well, this happened. And the school board covered it up. Now, here's where it gets entertaining, talking about media controlling perception. What do we know that the Department of Justice is pursuing right now? What did the head of the DOJ, what did Attorney General Merrick Garland just come out and suggest? That concerned parents at school board meetings were getting violent and that they needed to be investigated as domestic terrorists. Now, we can parse who said what and how far they were willing to take that, but that is the guts of it. Do your own homework. If you want to pull the fact checker thing and pull some fucking intellectual gymnastics to say there was anything but that, knock yourself out, Sparky. I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire. But the Attorney General of the United States essentially said that there were violent threats against school board members and that it had been demonstrated as physical violence at several school board meetings. And the one video they kept showing was an angry parent where? At the Loudoun County schools. A Loudoun County school board meeting, the one angry parent that you keep seeing on MSNBC and CNN every time they bring this up about angry parents being investigated as domestic terrorists for having pushback against their school boards. Every time it's the same fucking video, that angry parent being taken down by a sheriff's deputy in body armor and having to be forcibly wrestled to the ground and handcuffed. You see, that's the example. Violent people like that. Do you want to know why he was reacting like that? Because it was his fucking child. It was his child that got raped, and the district, now it's all come out, had been covering it up, deliberately covering it up, moving employees who knew about it to other places, moving students who knew about it to other places, moving the student in question to another school where he, she, boy in a skirt, name what you want to fucking call it, attacked and sexually abused another teenage girl. They proceeded to cover that one up too. And so when he tried to raise those concerns, remember the struggle sessions under Miles' Great Leap Forward? When he tried to raise those concerns at a school board meeting, he outed himself as having wrongthink, as being a thought criminal. And some sanctimonious leftist Stasi Karen cunt flap had the audacity to come up to him, put her hands to him and say, you need to stand down because what you're saying is transphobic. What you're saying is thought crime. What you're saying is factual fucking statements. But you see, that no longer flies in the age of leftism. So this parent in the Loudoun County schools kept talking, pushed her off, didn't sock her in the fucking mouth like I would have, full disclosure, pushed her off, continued to speak. He was shouted down by more extreme leftists who cannot accept factual realities if they interfere with the narrative. And eventually they called the cops in, and the cops took this father down, wrestled him to the ground, and cuffed him behind his back because he had the audacity to stand up over the cover-up of a rape of his teenage daughter by a guy in a skirt. And what did the left do? And what did the media do? And what did your government on your tax dollars do? They took that narrative and they ran with it. They took that fucking video and they made him the poster boy for angry parents lashing out at school boards, violent parents lashing out at school boards that needed to be brought to heel, investigated as potential domestic terrorists. You hadn't heard the story behind the story. I got to thank brother Jim Fuller, Fuller Phoenix, top AK builder in the United States and just a damn fine stand-up human being. He's been all over Instagram with this. I have posted some stuff to the fan page. I've stayed off of it on the personal page because, again, this is not something that I'm going to let cross that threshold into my personal life, my personal day-to-day, because my life here I'm always patently aware of what's going on. What I present to the world on a personal level, I will keep it upbeat. But you guys stick to the fan page and you guys keep watching the sermons so you know where I'm at. You know that the eyes are sharp. I'm keeping it pointed out. I will not have time to get to prepper tips because we're already over the hour. Just a real quick poke into the bread oven. Whatever you're going to grab it now. Supply chain issues, particularly food shortages, are going to hit hard. You need to get non-perishable foods and you need to get your food stores squared away right fucking now. Whatever spare money you got, throw it at freeze-dried food, throw it at canned goods, throw it at dried goods. Whatever spare money you have, throw it now. I'll have a chance to go into more of it next week. In fact, we'll set aside the whole Sunday. You guys remind me. We'll set aside that whole Sunday and we'll talk about how things are coming down the pike, how it will affect you and why you need to get your house in order. But to close out on this Loudoun County thing, now we know the reality of what happened. Now we know the reality of that angry father. Now we know that that angry father could have just as easily been any one of us. No matter how you're feeling about it. No matter what news outlet you observe, no matter which side of the political fence you're on. This is a teenage girl that got raped by a boy in a skirt at the end of the day. Those are the facts. No intellectual gymnastics required. And this is why it is so important for them to control the narrative. If you control, and I know you've heard this, but I'm going to go over it again because it bears repeating. If you control the stimulus, you control the response. If you control perception, being 9/10 of reality, if you control perception, then you control people's reality. So when you go forward, the reason I'm telling you not to engage is because you are dealing with people who believe in things that are fundamentally unreal. They have bought the narrative. They cannot be persuaded. They cannot be reasoned with. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Because we're winning. We're winning. This thing in Loudoun County has shaken more mainstream liberals off the fence once they get out there, once the information gets out there. So what I will encourage you to do is to spread the word. Don't engage with the lunatics who are going to push back and try to say, you can't say it was a boy in a skirt because the identity, and, when you look at it, statistically, don't engage those people because there's nothing to be done. But keep speaking. Keep posting. Keep putting the facts out there. Because in the end, fundamentally, people are suckers for the truth. People found out the truth about the infrastructure bill and they no longer support it. People are finding out the truth about what's going on in the border and they no longer support it. People are finding out the truth about our cadaver in chief and they no longer support it. People are finding out the truth about what went on in Loudoun County and they can no longer support it. The truth will out. So continue to speak that truth. And in the end, like the book says, that truth is going to set us all free. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. Sorry for wandering a bit there at the end. I appreciate you guys' patience. I think we ran about 3 or 4 minutes over. I still have a bunch of tabs that I wanted to get to. I got to find a way to get this consolidated down. But at the end of the day, man, I'm glad you guys are here. Going to go out with a little clutch. Fortunate Son. Another suggestion from Brother Ryan Jenkins. I really appreciate you guys being here. If anything I said
affected your life positively in any way, turned you on to some info that you weren't aware of, changed your perspective. You guys want to drop me a little coin? I'll pass around that digital collection plate. I'm on Cash App, Venmo, Facebook Pay, PayPal, all that good stuff. You guys want to throw me a little coin? That'd be great. If not, no big deal. What you can do for me, if you are a like-minded and kindred spirit and you dig what I have to say here and you want to keep speaking that truth like we talked about, well, get out there and tell your friends about it. Tell them you got some toothless, fat-ass old cripple, a crane operator with some opinions that rants and raves for an hour every Sunday. You can check him out. Maybe you'll dig what he has to say, right? And at the end of the day, here's where we're at, man. The three things that you can really, really do for me, not just for me, but for yourself. Remember, the prime directives. Be the signal, not the noise. Be the light in a world full of darkness, and be that strength in a world full of weakness. Always. It'll do you some good. And if you're no good to you, you're no good to anybody else. Keep yourself sharp. Keep yourself solid. Keep yourself strong. And speaking the truth. And in the meantime, don't get black-pilled, man. Don't let it get to you. Yes, we are under siege in more ways than you can even think about. I wouldn't have time in 3 hours to go into all the things they throw on us on a day-to-day basis, man. But at the end of the day, you make yourself strong. You make yourself harder to kill. You keep spitting the truth. And we win. In the end, we win. And right now, we are winning. Don't ever lose sight of that. I love you guys. Each and every one of you, appreciate you being here. Take care of yourselves. I'm the Reverend. That is the gospel. We'll see you next Sunday. Peace.